Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Alaikum
Family, how you guys doing? Alhamdulillah. MashaAllah. Welcome to the Dope Muslim Woman podcast live in studio show. We are in collaboration with the Resolution Conference, which is going to be hosted this weekend right here in Atlanta. So this is our launch. And I'm super excited about this particular podcast because it's about to be fire. Okay. So alhamdulillah, the Dope Muslim Woman podcast is humbled to collaborate with the Resolution Conference. And I know Khalil, you've been organizing this and you've been kind of like, mashallah, a little bit of the brain behind the Resolution Conference. Can you tell us first and foremost a little bit about what's happening this weekend?
Okay, so this weekend in Atlanta, at West End Masjid on Saturday and Muhammad Schools of Atlanta on Sunday, we are doing a conference that unveils some solutions to some things we've been talking about for a long time.
Right.
And the Muslim Women podcast has been a part of that conversation that we've been having, which really has come to the idea that we need a village and a continuous village, and we need a way to continually communicate to each other. So basically, between physical activity, right, and panels around gathering information from people for what they need for their relationships.
Right.
Inshallah, this conference will be great. So we're going to have a concert with Ain't Afraid, featuring Ain't Afraid, great twin duo, on Sunday. And then Sunday activities, sisters thing only on Sunday, right? We start at 11 o'clock. And Saturday, we're going to have panels that do everything from unveil a courtship app for people who are doing courtship, for people who need divorce support, things like that. So I could go on and on. We can do a little bit more later, but I just wanted to say that to begin. And then maybe later, we'll talk a little bit more.
Okay, so the Resolution Conference launches Friday?
It launches Saturday, actually.
Right.
So it launches Saturday at West End Masjid. We're going to be doing panels all day, right? And what we'll be doing with those panels is showing the solution that we've kind of come up with. And we know this is a managing thing. It's not a thing where we're going to solve everything.
Right.
But to better help us manage and better help us with our relationships with an app. And so it's going to have a matchmaking component and a community component, right? African Americans for a long time have complained that no matchmaking systems work for us. They're all for other people. This is supposed to change that, inshallah.
Right. MashaAllah. Okay, I'm excited about it. All right, assalamu alaikum, everybody. I need to see the comments. We're going to be organic here. I hope you guys allow us to be. Can we click on comments? It's the top right. I want to see what bring my people. Okay, so assalamu alaikum, everybody. So as you guys come in, please greet us. We can see you. All of us can see what you're saying. So we want you a part of this dialogue. Please share the podcast. Okay. This is going to be an amazing, amazing show. It is called Ceasefire, Ending the War Between Men and Women. And we just had a little conversation and commitment that we are going to be raw, honest, and authentic and talk about the things that maybe just a little bit uncomfortable for us to have, these conversations that are uncomfortable for most of us to have, and be organic and honest. But we're going to dialogue and create that for you guys here today on the show. So I'm super excited, alhamdulillah. So this is just a raw conversation. I'm not interviewing anybody. I'm Sabria today, not the Muslim woman. So let's introduce everybody, because these are people that have been familiar to the show. So as you guys know, I'm Sabria today. Okay, so I'm not the host. I'm a guest. And I'm here with my beautiful sister,
Noble Solace. Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
Thank you for being here. She does a lot of collaborations with Nasheed Jackson's podcast, and I saw you sharing I saw people just sharing you like crazy, because they were like, who is this sister? She's just very raw and honest. Mashallah, so we're thankful to have Noble. And then our dear brother,
Khalil Ismail.
Right, mashallah. He never likes to say, okay, I'm a world performer, mashallah, but that's what we do.
And a lyricist.
We'll just put that in there. And mashallah, my fellow podcaster, my brother, author,
Nasheed Jackson. I got a show I hosted with Noble Nasheed, we call it. Noble Nasheed. Y'all check it out, man. # Noble Nasheed. You should.
And you're on YouTube.
And I'm
Firestorm.
Yeah.
You deal with the brothers, right? So
exactly.
So you know where they're at.
Not really.
I see some of the comments under your stuff.
That's what. So I'm with the brothers, but at the same time, I'm trying to deal with the younger generation.
Yeah.
And what they telling me is, man, what you telling us is for old women. Like these women For real.
We new out here.
Yeah, he like, man, that stuff don't work for younger women. Like that's what they telling me. So I'm trying to, rebrand or trying
The
to get
game has
something.
changed a bit. Is that what we're
The
saying?
thing for me, I believe women and men are the same when you get to the core of it.
Right. Same thing, maybe.
Yeah, when women are attracted to masculinity, when men are attracted to femininity. That's what we do. That's what we do, but it's different out there right
But
now.
are we masculine or are we feminine?
Ah.
I don't. What's up?
I think we have a misconception of what masculinity and femininity is. And so we have to start to define that. Start to really dig down deep and understand what that is. And so we can find ourselves and in tune and each other.
Right. I think that's a big issue. I recently discussed this. I was reading this book called The Way of the Superior Man, David Dida.
Yeah.
There's some things you can take and some things you can reject, but I think he has really great concepts in his book. He talks a lot about masculinity, and it's interesting because I'm like, I think a lot of the root of our issues is a result of being disconnected from our core, right? So, all right, can we ask once and for all? All right, how do you guys define masculinity? Like, what do you, because this is vague out here.
I got this.
You got it?
I know for
We want to know, definitely.
for each dude is different. For each, it's different for each other. Because like you say, they got there's the alpha male, the beta male. Like that's a real thing.
Okay, can you break that down?
But they're both masculine. Alpha male, he dominant. Beta male is more, I guess, submissive. Would you say?
Ooh, is
In more spaces. But I was just talking to somebody about this the other day. The alpha becomes a beta in a different circumstance. I'll give you an example. Like a guy who is a weightlifting champ or in the weight room, if he's been doing that, he's going to take charge. But you put him in a room where people are talking about emotional issues, he's going to be quiet and he's going to become quiet and submissive. So the problem is that we have defined these things in a static way when in different circumstances, one shrinks.
Right.
We keep putting ourselves in boxes.
Word.
We're expected to stay in that box despite the environment, despite the circumstance that we're put in. We're not allowed to be fluid.
Right. So basically acknowledging that there are masculine and feminine energies within each of us.
Yeah.
Right? Because I was giving this example. I go out and work. Work in the world. So I sometimes have to lean into my masculine energy, even though I like to be ultra feminine, to accomplish the task of the day. I have to be a charger. I have people that work under me, etc. Right? So it's beneficial to an extent.
And same here, those of us who have careers and that are out there are earning our living as women, we do have to lean into the more commanding role at times just to be able to make it out there.
Right.
But then when we come home, I think that the important thing to point out is we want to embrace our femininity. We want that to be something that we come home and we're able to shed all of the outside expectations of us being strong and in charge. And we want to be able to
so what you said, you ain't bring that home? You just got through being dominant at work. You ain't bringing that in the house? Like when you get home to your
real
husband.
talk, women, that's the issue. We come out of alignment. And I'm like, how do you balance it? Right? Because at the end of the day, as a woman that's connected to her femininity, that has to be my core. That has to be, my femininity has to lead as a leading energy. Even if I'm out there in the world. And I think that when we're always out there, we're charging, we're doing this, do we come out of alignment? And how does that show up? How does that look like for y'all when we come home and we both y'all around?
Yeah, sometimes it comes in back in the house. But that for me, we'll both need to know what our relationship is. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I know, she's out there in the world dealing with whatever. When she comes home, I'm going to try to make it a palette, lay everything laid out for her. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to try to make everything laid out so she don't have to come home and do that. She wants to come home and be feminine. So I'm going to allow her to do that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. Absolutely.
And not being dominant, not, bossy, not being bossy or whatever.
Like a charger. Right.
Not, just trying to make it comfortable for her. And she will do the same for me. Right. Instead of bringing that to me because then we got an issue. I want to fight.
And women have to have mindfulness techniques when we're on the way home. I believe that that's important to have to understand that I am going home now. It's time to unwind. It's time to set these habits to the side that I've had to adopt, whether you work in corporate America or just in a commanding environment.
Yeah,
You have to have mindfulness techniques to shed that.
absolutely, absolutely. But I wanted to ask about concept of polarity. So, as a feminine woman, or as a woman that appreciates leaning into her femininity, I need the masculine to sort of be clear, stabilized, stationary, has a mission greater than me. I don't, even though I may tell you I want to be your everything, I literally need you to have a purpose outside of me and the kids, right? A lot of women that I connect to are often finding men very confusing. And I think that's the opposite of masculinity. Masculinity is really clear. Because as a woman, I'm fluid. So I'm all up and down. But you, as a man, are the more stable. I mean, this is what I'm needing. Y'all looking at me funny. So is that what you would define as masculinity? Are women asking for too much or what? Because what's up with all the confusion? Y'all know, I mean, people don't know they're going right, left, up there, this woman, that woman.
Go ahead.
So when you was talking about, women back and forth and men stable, when dudes come to me and they ask me about polygamy, how
You going here already?
no, what I said, when dudes come to me and ask me about polygamy, I tell them for the first 6 months to a year, it's gonna be hate. Like it's going, you know what I mean? You're gonna feel it. As far as emotional, the women being emotional, like up and down, everywhere. I tell them,
her fluidity.
I tell them it's like a roller coaster. You let her go, wee, and you stand right in one spot while she's going back and forth.
Yeah.
You stand your ground. In both situations, or how many other situations you have, you stand your ground in every situation. So I think that's what a man
It
should
offers the woman what? The man stands firm while he watches the woman. I ain't like that. I don't know how I felt about that. You watching the woman.
Right.
You ever pulling her out of the
Right. How do you help her stop that pendulum?
By her seeing me, he's not going to change. He's going to be in his position. So regardless of where I go, emotionally on the emotional scale, he's going to be right where he is. And I think that's what she needs to know. It helps her to be stable.
That he's unwavering and he's unmoving and he's a solid foundation.
Is that what you're saying, Khalil? Is that?
No, I mean, I think he's right. You have to be solid, but I think that takes practice. It takes training. And I think that's the problem. I think that men aren't being prepared for that kind of stability. And I think that's the issue. And that even comes from the culture of, we talk about this. So I'm going to keep talking about it because a lot talks about it. It actually comes from things like the culture of denying, the culture of entitlement. So you don't have stability comes from training. Like at the end of the day, when we go off to fight, like at the end of the day, we have to train.
Yeah.
And when you know what you have to train to do, you have to train to be calm in adversity, right? When you go to the military, the reason why they're yelling at you, spitting in your face and all that other stuff and making you have to stand there is because you're learning how to be calm in the face of something that is messing with you here, right? And society is pulling us from that. So you can't, literally, why would you expect someone who hasn't been in that kind of training, right, to all of a sudden get into a place where their heart is being pulled at? Because the thing is, women pull at our heart. There's nothing we can do about that. What we can do about it is we can train, right, to be stable, despite what happens. But that takes intentionality. It's kind of like what you were talking about with mindfulness.
Yeah.
And on our side,
Right.
we need mindfulness on our side too.
So are you saying that the brother that doesn't have training, I just want to, the volume's up, right? The brother that doesn't have training discipline shouldn't even look into polygamy. That's what y'all saying?
He has to go through training.
I'm saying he better, marriages have to fade. Well, I think part of what that means is you're learning how to have some perseverance through adversity. If you don't have the mindset that this is teaching me that, because you got to have the mindset first, then you're not training. And you could be training in any type of circumstance. It could be taking care of your mother. It could be taking care of somebody. It's responsibility, it's sacrifice in many forms.
Yeah.
But if you're thinking that all types of responsibility and sacrifice is negative, or the discomfort is making you feel a certain way and you don't like that feeling, and because you don't have a mission or purpose for training, you're going to reject the lesson. And that's the problem. So yeah, if you take on another person, for one, forget polygyny, you don't have a problem with monogamy.
Reject that woman.
That training is definitely vital both ways. I think we're caught up on this Disney concept where you're supposed to fall in love, everything's supposed to be perfect, there's not supposed to be any rocky spots. And if there is any rocky spots, that's your sign that it's not the right relationship.
The red flag call.
That's the red flag. Yeah, right.
We
It's
say
like,
cancel call.
oh, cancel.
Yeah, that goes to
Right.
relationships too.
But you know, it really is, like you just said, it's a training that we all have to go through. We have to allow ourselves to be in the relationship, experience hard times, learn from those hard times, and make that choice
Yeah.
to still stay and love that person through those hard times, because through that journey, I
Yeah.
believe that's where that 30-year marriage comes from. That's where that forever love comes from, because you have to journey together. You have to know that even through the bad times, even through the hard times, that person is going to be there. We're going to work it out.
Yeah.
So stop running. That's what you're saying.
Stop running. Yeah. I mean, well, to a point, yes, stop running. When it comes to working through basic troubles in a relationship. I'm not talking about the trauma and the heart and the abuse. That's not what I'm addressing. What I'm talking about is just being in a relationship and going through the normal rocky ups and downs of every relationship. The trust issues, some insecurity, who you're with, and how they communicate. You know, a lot of times communication is at the forefront of our problems. We hear them, you know, I mean, we're listening to what they're saying, but we're not hearing them at their core.
Yeah.
And a lot of that comes down to how we were conditioned. And, you know, like I said, it goes back to this element of, I shared this with you guys before we started the show. It's like, for me, femininity, submissiveness means just being quiet. You know, the good girl's quiet. She just takes it, right? But that's so far removed from my femininity. My femininity actually cannot exist without expression, without fluidity, and that fluidity being able to be expressed, right? I birth children from that place, right? I create from that place.
Right.
So it's rarely quiet, right? It's rarely unmoving, right? But there was some social conditioning. Would you agree with that? And I don't know what the conditioning was for y'all.
I mean, I think the conditioning for men was ease.
Ooh.
Find the easiest thing. If that means be quiet and let her have it, right? If that means, you know, go, you know, from woman to woman, if that, whatever it is, find the line of least resistance. That's the conditioning that we have to break, right?
Where did that come from?
I mean, both cultures, both East and West. This is so crazy about it.
Yeah.
From the West side, it is a so you're royal. Oh, that the ease is, hey, don't commit. You see what I'm saying? Hey, keep partying, do what you got to do, which really sullies and poisons your soul. That's basically what they're saying, right? That's on the East side. It is she needs to obey, right? If she's not only submissive, then she's not the type, you know, the woman who, you know, does X, Y, and Z will not smell paradise. You know what we're talking about, right? So both sides are teaching that the common denominator is you got to have ease, which is different from peace.
Yeah.
Peace is to be fought for. We know in every circumstance, right? Peace sometimes has to be fought for.
Mm-hmm.
We've had to fight wars for peace.
Mm-hmm.
We fought. How many times have you been in a fight actually with your friend in school, and then you end up being best friends because that's what it had to come down to? Right? Peace is different from ease. We go for ease.
We confuse the two, don't we?
We confuse the two.
We confuse the two. Because if I had a dime for every person that I heard be my peace, I can't stand that. That is like a trigger. I just need a sister to be my peace. I'm like, what does that mean? No, you want somebody easy that you could just,
right,
you know, run over. So yeah, that's a good point.
I just thought of this. It's an old song. I don't know. I think about songs. Don't blame Mr. Charlie. Mr. Charlie is just a man, and he's doing the best he can. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
I do.
The women were different.
Mm-hmm.
The women used to table, to constantly table, but now these men are having to deal with what you say, femininity, but it's, you know, fierce femininity. Like y'all ain't taking that no more. So it's like it's an adjustment that men have to make now. And I think we're having trouble making that adjustment.
Ooh.
But you know what? I feel like it's
All
going
right.
to the opposite extreme. I mean, if I'm gonna be honest with you,
Uh-oh.
like the problem is that it's gone to the point where there's a lot of people who don't know the line, a lot of women who don't know the line between you gotta worship me,
Yeah.
right? And stand, and you know, there's a level at which a man has to stand his ground too.
What
Right.
you mean you got worship?
Meaning like if you're not serving me and I don't have to do that back, you're not a good man. Right? Meaning, and give you an example. Like, for example, let's just take the plate argument everybody's having now, right?
Okay.
At the end of the day, like my wife will give me a plate, but I'll give her a plate too. Like I'm not a problem getting my wife if I'm somewhere, my wife might call me like, I need a plate.
Right.
Okay, cool, I got you, babe.
So reciprocity.
Right.
Balance.
But what's happened now is there are a lot of women who are like, I ain't getting this plate, but she don't have a problem asking for it.
Oh, okay.
What's happening here?
Okay.
What's happening here? That's what I'm just saying.
Okay.
Mm.
Okay. Is it a result? No, I do agree. We
Okay.
have went to the extreme,
Right.
right?
It's
We have went to there has been some extremes. No, it is birth from a result, as he said of that error. I do feel that way. Now, I think that, you know, unfortunately we were all kind of pitted against each other. There was
Yes.
some targeting, there was some conditioning, right? Right? There's a bigger enemy at this that
Yes.
we're really at war
Yes.
with. It's not
Yes.
us,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
We want to keep it real.
Yes.
But is that sort of like almost trigger trauma response, right? Because a lot of women now, we respond to men through our trauma. It's a trauma
Hey,
response. You say
man.
something to me, I'm either fleeing from you, I'm gonna fight you, right? I may fawn, I may try to please and you know, all of that, or I may freeze.
And it's
I may do
automatic.
nothing.
It's automatic.
Mhm.
That's how we're not even living and thriving with you guys. We're surviving with you.
Mm.
We're surviving, and that's even generational stuff that you know, grandmama passed it to mama passed it to us, right? And then result in our relationships, and that's the reality. So we have went to the extreme, but at the end of the day, I think we both are like existing in a sense of like surviving in a relationship, not really thriving. I don't know if we fully got like that.
Right,
No,
exactly.
no.
And I think men are doing the same thing. They're trying
Yeah.
to survive.
Yeah.
Because they be up in the pool. I mean, I know what he did as an example, but
We are no, it's
Yeah.
no, it's no.
and y'all are having no trouble now with boundaries.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah, no, I mean, as I said, I mean, you were talking about the powers that be. The powers that be have empowered you purposely,
Yeah.
right, to
They're
pit you
out-
against us,
yeah.
right? And they have tried to strip the power from us to pit us against you. And that's what's sad about it, right?
Mhm.
Because if we don't have enough alternative to empower you, where are you going to go? So I had this conversation with my friend who was was talking about how, you know, nowadays a lot of men are talking about women's masculinity, women being masculine. And I said to him, the problem is this, right? What is the alternative that we have? If we send the women out to the workforce, right, and we don't have a place for them to go and be protected, then they're outside of the space that a law meant for them. So types of byproducts that's going to happen from that. Now we know that didn't come from us, but that's the reality of the situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we got to work. Here's why we have to work together. We can't do it alone. Like I can't do it alone with him. You can't do it alone with her. We actually got to huddle
Okay.
because we actually have to do things for each other that wouldn't normally happen. Such as I have to be more forbearing of you when you are in your masculine place because you're coming from a space where you have to be there.
Mhm.
You got to be forbearing of me because they stripped us from our power. We're struggling trying to get it back.
Right.
That is a powerful message. I want to just hone in on that message that we are pitted against each other in this country. It's very on purpose. It's
Oh.
just so strategic.
Mhm.
It
The
only
way that it's
comes from
Yes.
the concept of pharaohs.
Yes.
right. And
That concept. Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to-
no, you're fine.
Yeah.
And when we realize that,
Yeah.
we'll be able to look at each other with a little bit more empathy.
Mhm.
We'll be able to take ourselves outside of this combative nature that we have when the other person doesn't possess the exact thing that we're looking for. And we'll be able to start to really empathize and bond because we'll have that understanding of, wow, it really is me and you against this system that is set up to ultimately destroy us. And it's winning right now. It's winning because it's on the feminine side, it's empowering me against you.
Right.
And on the masculine side,
Killing off our men.
yeah, it really is. It's killing them off. It's taking them away from us. It's leaving them powerless. They can't protect us anymore. They can't provide for us. And so we're put in a place where we want the masculinity. We want the alpha man, but sometimes we have to help them reach that point because of everything that's been taken from them. We have to show them that we're willing to put them up in that position sometimes, so they'll embrace it, and then they'll start to feel comfortable in it, and they'll start to feel powerful in it, and then they will start to be that.
Yeah.
And sometimes we have to be that soft space.
Men have to know how to accept that too.
That's right.
A lot of us don't know how to accept that type of love or that type of support.
How do you guys respond to it? Reject it? You fight it?
You know, what I see a lot, you know, because, you know, you constantly doing stuff on your own, and that's what you get used to.
Yeah.
So when you get somebody in your space that's trying to help you do things, you be like, nah, I got it. I take care of it. I get it. And she's just really trying to show you love. So you're not allowing her to show you love, and it kind of pushes her, makes her go into a shell, I think. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we have to learn as men how to accept that from our household. We at war.
We are.
We at war.
I wanted to pause if that's okay to chime into some comments. I really can't see it, so we need a little producer to help throw us. Can we look it over? Like,
What are we looking at?
we get a comment? Can we pull a comment out that we can sort of address? I don't have a good visual, but I can see that they're strobing. Give it to us.
Should I say the name?
Sure. Yep.
You have a comment from Huda Ahmed. Says, if a man stands firm, the woman will either follow or leave. As far as the roller coaster, women need to control their own emotions. That's not a man's job to bring you down from the roller coaster. He just has to manage and maintain properly because women are emotional creatures.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Weren't we just talking about? So
We were.
before the show,
Mm-hmm.
because as Muslims, alhamdulillah, we are very blessed. We have beautiful examples. We have a whole blueprint. We
Right.
really don't have to scratch and dig, right?
Right.
We were talking about the beloved story between Aisha radiallahu anha and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? And so when you dive deep into that story, I want to hear everybody's reflections. We were all kind of just like in a space thinking about this love story, but just how when I see so much, you know, inshallah, hopefully somebody saw that Aisha, because she was so fluid and but she was also one of the most obedient servants of Allah. Her emotional fluidity, like I said, even that roller coaster ride that wasn't a reflection of disobedience or disconnection. There was no shame attached to it, because you can see in how the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam dealt with her. When she went too far, he softly adjusted her. Like when she would say something maybe harmful against Lady Khadija. But other than that, how did he respond?
You still love that old lady?
Right. Right.
You still talk about that old lady?
That's a roller coaster.
But that was one of the times where he wasn't happy, right? But I like that too, right? Because they were human too, right? And that's what I like, the forbearance that they had of their humanity. And when she saw him get that way, she immediately backed down, because she's like, this isn't him. I know I must have struck a chord. So somebody, like at some point, you're also looking at them, look at the pulse of each other at different times, because, she got out the gate and he was the calm. In that case, actually, he was like, what he said made her back up.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think that dynamic, that story is not, let me just say this, that story is not told right most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
We tell that story from almost a patronizing standpoint. He ran with her.
Yeah.
It's either he ran with her and patronized her,
right? Yep.
and he forbore. It was almost like, he kind of tolerated her, and she was the underling who, in that way, who was always aggressive, and he had to deal with her emotion. What really happened was that he went go to her house and lay on her lap, right? And it was somebody just shared something with me, right? Right.
Exactly.
He was praying. Somebody just shared this with me. He was praying, night and day. And one day she was like, it was her night. He got 9 wives. her night, and he has to pray all night. And her saying is, I love what he loves, right? So it's this softness that she has back with him, because most women, after 9 days, what?
What's up with me?
What? Let's be real.
Yeah, you coming over here after you.
Right. Let's be real. Right. And this exchange makes him weep. This is their relationship. It is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, she's one of the strongest narrators
And she had that
That's why.
respect for him also.
Yeah.
That respect, and that's what allowed her to check herself, of realizing that, he's coming outside of his character. I'm making him upset. Let me check myself, because I realize that I'm kind of the catalyst of that. And I think that self-control and that self-introspection in times of heightened emotion, that's what's happening that we don't have these days.
Yeah, but
We're not allowing ourselves to kind of come back down. Like,
go ahead.
go ahead.
No, just the fact that they shared that with us. You know what I mean? That narrative, that part was shared with us. It's amazing.
But also, but at the same time, even with that, yes, we are all responsible for our stuff, and we know our limits. But one of the things I do think that has damaged women is that this narrative of that I have to be so in control that I'm now suppressing. No, a part of me being a woman is in my fluidity, is a little bit in my roller coaster. Yes, I'm responsible for it to stay within the parameters of what Allah has guided me towards. But within that, I can lean firmly in my femininity. Like I said, I birth children from that place. If I'm not fluid, if I'm not expressing, how can I really raise up these different temperaments? My kids are like all the way on the opposite end of the spectrum. How on earth can I nurture them? Can I caretake them if I'm not having the ability to be on my roller coaster fluidity and being able to express that? As long as it doesn't lead to it being toxic,
Right.
or coming from like a place of harm.
And that's where the teamwork comes in. That's where, like you were saying earlier, where the woman is swinging back and forth and the man stays stable. Let her swing. Because when you let her swing and you let her go through her emotions and you let her get it out and you're still there strong and stable and loving.
That's so attractive, by the way.
It really is.
It
really
is.
So, and then when the man loses his temper, the woman is able to check herself because she remembers the time when she was all over the place and he was her stabilizer.
Right.
And it's that mutual respect. It's that mutual bond balance in that relationship that we have to get back to. We have to take responsibility, but we also have to be able to be our wild selves sometimes.
Well, I'd say I like wildly feminine.
Yeah,
okay.
wild.
It's long, like I said, we know our parameters. Wildly feminine. I'm all for it.
But I think that the reason what's happening is that there's not safety for that, and then there's also not purpose with that, right?
Okay. What do you mean by that?
The common denominator is we are both assisting each other trying to get to Allah, forgiveness and Jannah, right? And that has to be the front purpose, and that's the motivation for why I'm forbearing, why I give a safer space. Because if it's left to me, like none of us can really be the end all be all for each other.
Absolutely.
Right? We can't carry the weight of another soul. Actually, only Allah. We are literally loans to each other, right? This is what I think is missing a lot of times. We're putting all the weight on the other person to save and be there, and some of that we have to give to Allah. A lot of that, actually, right? Really, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm forbearing. Like literally, we should be appreciative of the fact that sometimes that person is forbearing, not for me, but literally because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants me to be that way. Then I can come back to equilibrium at some point, right? But sometimes it's not about you, why I'm actually good to you, right? And it goes both ways, and I have to accept that too.
Right.
I want a woman who puts Allah before me, above me, so those times when I'm not there, she still has something to hold on to. But you gotta be mature for that.
That's what I was saying. Is that what y'all?
Beautiful point.
Alhamdulillah for winning that, but is that really what the brothers don't want to want?
But we're not pushing it to that. We're not pushing people to that. Like honestly, we're not pushing people to that. We're pushing people to if he, then she, if they, then that. If you cut them off, it's all reactions to the individual.
Right. Absolutely.
This is the problem. Like, why would if we're not teaching people that hey, it's something bigger? What you expect?
We've forgotten how to love each other for the sake of Allah.
Exactly. And I totally agree. And I've been hearing these conversations since I was a little girl. But the problem is that we hear these conversations and we say, that's right, that doesn't apply to me. We often don't have awareness of where we are. Like for me, I can come on here, adult Muslim woman, and Sabria got it all together. She talked about this, she talked about that. In my intimate relationship, what's my husband gonna say about me? Right? I'm seeing it, I'm talking about it like third person, right? And it's because sometimes they're not willing to get in, like really actually sit into. We rush sometimes, push people like solution, but it's like, if I don't even think this applies to me, I'm be like, yeah, that's what them brothers should do. Them sisters over there, that's what they should do. But no, me, like, you know what I'm saying? Like really, and just understanding the why. It took me to this year, in the past 12 months, to actually understand that I don't have to be shamed. That I'm not like, I didn't have to be shameful just about being, I've always was emotional. I didn't know, like, I just was super feminine. My father was always there. I just thought like, oh my gosh, I'm too emotional, I gotta fix it. Until you get the right alignment to show you that you're exactly, you're actually in alignment, right?
But I'm gonna say this, man. I'm emotional too, and so is he. He can say whatever he want, I don't care. He's emotional too.
Yeah.
You are. Right? We're emotional too. And really, the problem is that we need to learn from each other on how to deal with our emotions. And this is what I mean. Like, I've learned to be a student of everything and everyone, right? I'm a student of the woman and how the woman deals with the emotional realm, how they come back from it. We don't come back from the emotional realm the way y'all do.
Absolutely.
Let's be real, when we get emotionally hurt, y'all might get out the gate, but then y'all back up the next day doing whatever.
We're gonna get another great child.
So I'm like, what are women doing? What are women doing? And what I realize women are doing is women are expressing. That's what I learned from women. Yeah. Women are expressing.
Right.
That's why they live in longer outside. Women are expressing. Then I'm reading about the Sahaba, and I'm like, they're expressing too. So it's actually we're emotional, but the way we wield our emotions are different. Emotions are different.
Okay.
So I think when Allah defines, and I'm gonna say this because I can talk all day about this stuff, right? But when you look at what Allah defines as good people, Allah says the men and women who are patient, the men and women who are, are truthful, men and women who make sajda.
Right.
He says the men and women. So we're supposed to be learning from each other as to how to get to that equilibrium, because we were created with a different kind of imbalance as a test. We both have different parts of the balance, but we're actually trying to come to balance together. Y'all got some things that y'all better at. We got some things that we're better at. We should be learning from each other.
That's the concept of polarity. Would you kind of look at it that way, or?
I think the concept of polarity. Yes, I think that wherever you see, it's not even just men and women, it's nations, it's tribes, it's people, different types of people. But it's the concept of wherever you are, you should be looking to see, oh, you know what? That trait, I know that's more like what Allah, because principles, good traits are genderless.
Yeah, exactly.
Allah does not define good traits as man and woman, they're genderless.
Right.
So we both can learn that, and that's what I'm saying. So polarity, I think the polarity from that standpoint is whoever you are around, who are you with? You look at the good, you look at the bad. What can I learn from both?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I gotta be forgiven. So when you talk about, and it's the last point I'll make on this point, when you talk about people not applying to themselves, we all gotta be forgiven from Allah. Yeah. For what you think like. So where do you think your flaw is?
Right.
We all are flawed, right? So make that a default. I'm flawed. So it's not a matter whether I'm flawed, but where it is, right? Yeah. So I should always be learning. So that's what I learned. Learn.
I think it was a big call out that men have emotions.
Yeah.
Us women have to realize that the emotions that men have, they're expressed differently, but they're still emotions.
Right.
And sometimes they're not communicated the way we communicate ours, so we don't hear the translation properly. It comes off possibly as aggression, possibly as they're ignoring us, maybe insensitivity, withdrawal, right? But we have to start looking at our men as though, they're going through something. Wow, this is hitting them emotionally. Maybe if we learn how to translate the actions, because men are logical, so usually your emotions end up in a logical expression of, like you said, withdrawing or maybe a little bit of aggression here and there. If we can just learn that translation point, I think it would soften our hearts to them in those moments that we're usually programmed to react in a negative way. Oh, he's ignoring me. Oh, well, he's not speaking. Oh, did he just say that to me? Instead of realizing, oh, wow, he must be hurt.
Mm-hmm.
That must hurt him.
Yeah, we don't process it that way.
You mentioned something that's really important. White supremacy imbalance in an imbalanced way makes logic king. But your logic can sometimes get you in trouble just as much as it can do well for
The
you,
mind versus the heart.
right? Sometimes you gotta put the logic away. You gotta feel it. And this is not just, I'm not just saying that from a standpoint, I'm saying even from a law standpoint. A law defines believers sometimes people who cry.
I have a question then. What is your advice to men who have been put in a situation or raised in an environment that has told them that they cannot be emotional, that emotions are something that is reserved only for the feminine, and
Yep.
how do they break through?
Emotional suppression. I know we talked about that before.
Nah, you got it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest, that's the one thing where I can only give him this line. I'm gonna tell you why, because it's the way to balance. One, we have to be. We have the man who denies that he's emotional is a sick man. You don't realize he's a sick man because he's denying an aspect of creation. The Lord created us, right, to feel, right, and to feel deeply, right. So one, it's the acknowledgement that you have them. The first thing I would tell them is you have to start telling yourself, and then you have to start searching for them where they are, because you probably buried them somewhere and you're acting right now. A healthy human being acknowledges all parts of himself, right? Once you can acknowledge, you can manage it. You can't manage what you don't acknowledge. It's just like you can't heal what you don't acknowledge. So the first point, and I'll stop there because we can go on with that. The first part is acknowledgement that it's not unmanly to be emotional. It's unmanly to be undisciplined. And there's a difference. We have such a discipline.
I want to offer a perspective of so if a man does that, then ladies, we need to offer that safe space.
I was gonna say a lot of men say it's more so about safety, like they don't feel safe.
They don't feel safe.
No, it's not.
Like
Women
it stems back to childhood. Like
women will get hard and mad at dudes who actually show their emotions. That's real talk.
But even when you were a young boy and your dad and your mama said, it doesn't start from that point for us with
Like man up.
Man, once you have kids, all that go out the window.
Tell me about that.
All that go out the window.
I've seen some.
I was crying holding my daughter in there. You know what I mean?
He was crying.
Emotion, all that. I mean, you realize you are a feeling person when you get your kids. You know what I mean?
But you know what I'm saying? What makes you privileged is that your expression. You've always been expressive.
You're a creator.
You're a creator and you express, and that's the key, right? And what I'm saying is that men have been suppressed from creating, from being able to tell this story in the narrative. It's almost like if you do, like, who the hell are you, right? So you were already in the training to be able to cry.
Yeah.
A lot of us sit down and shut up and don't,
Yeah. Man up.
I mean, and that's not only men. It's the women. It's your mama, your grandma telling you that.
Did you raise your sons that way? Can I get personal? Did you raise your sons to man up? Don't cry.
No, I didn't.
You didn't.
No, I didn't. I was real chill. Real chill. I mean, they're expressive. They can tell you how they feel.
Right.
You're not today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know you have only girls.
I got only girls, but I'm into guys.
Yeah.
And it's a balance.
Right.
There is a time where you gotta actually be strong,
right,
and hold them tears, and that's the point. That's why we call it the measure path. It's about being measured, actually, right? You gotta know when, right? There are times for everything, but you gotta have a time when you let them tears. I'm at one of my best friends. He's like, man, I ain't cry when my girl left. I ain't cry when my wife left, and I'm like, that's a problem, man. And it's a problem that you're bragging about it.
Yeah, that's the issue.
It's a problem that you're bragging. You might not have, because you might not have felt that way, but it's a problem that you're bragging about it.
Right.
I'm worried about you.
Yeah. I'm like just to kind of chime back in with our audience. Is it okay if we bring in another comment from our producer. Shout out to our producer, mashallah, holding down
Shout
multiple
out.
jobs.
One time, one time.
One time, brother Amir.
Brother Amir, mashallah.
Let's see. We have lots of comments from Sister Huda.
You want to pick some? Just you have anyone else?
Adiba, I said Adiba up there.
Adiba,
yeah,
what?
some of those are replies to Sister Huda.
Oh.
All right. Showing up, she might as well just put it on the string.
Let's see. Sister Adiba says, an elder told me only one person can be crazy at a time.
Real talk.
Woo!
Real talk.
That's a
Real talk.
word.
Because one got to be the caretaker.
Real talk.
Come
Fire
on.
and water.
I got a caretaker. I'm the
Real
caretaker.
talk.
Now you can talk about that.
Right.
But look, I mean, think about that as a like you should read another comment too after that, right?
Yeah.
But think about it from a prophetic perspective. Like for that moment where Aisha got out the gate, the prophet was outside himself. He was like, I mean, if somebody said what the prophet said, they would say he wasn't past that death and he should never got married. Let's be real. In today's society, if y'all were judging him, most people would say he should.
Oh, heal Nasheed.
You know, he's not healed. Go heal. He couldn't have that moment. People wouldn't give him that moment, right? Go heal. Like, how could you actually compare Khadijah? Like, why would you say she was, why would you say that? You know Aisha was emotional. You should just take that. But he had a human moment, right? But when he got crazy, Aisha got calm. That's what I do something about. Go ahead.
Who we got?
Okay.
Huda, come through, babe. I just want to shout out to Huda Ahmed. Okay, I'm seeing you, sweetie. Thank you. And you can pull anyone actually, anyone that stands out to you.
Yeah, I'm just trying to, because some of them are
Replies.
They're
they're talking to each other.
We want them to do that.
I'm gonna, but I can't. It's hard to just jump in the middle. Here it says exactly, Khalil. There has to be balance. When to be strong, when to cry. Everything isn't worth a breakdown. I have to teach my son that. I try to get him to think about it. Is this thing worthy of my tears, or is it worthy of finding a solution?
Ooh, I like that. Yeah.
Our fathers, think about our fathers. They couldn't cry at certain times because if somebody saw their weakness, they destroyed them.
Yeah. Black men, yep. My dad was forced to be on the front lines in the Vietnam War to protect the white soldiers. Imagine, what I mean? Took shots for it and everything. So, I mean, just what they had to endure, mashallah. And that's why I always say, mashallah, may Allah bless. Especially like people like my dad who still got pushed through all of that to raise daughters and love on them. You know what I mean? Like that takes a lot. And we want to fault them for all of our, just going back to like parenting really quickly. We want to fault them for all of their mistakes, but we don't see like what, and I just know as a parent what I have to push through myself in order to express unconditional love to this child that needs it. Can we talk a little bit about we were talking about emotions. Can we talk a little bit about like just that relationship, even that with our parents, like kind of where it all starts. We don't get enough time and enough space to really just even talk about, we can understand their stories.
Man, so my parents, my mom, crack is a real drug, man. Like, so I was able, and when I was younger, that's what I saw her dealing with, drug abuse.
Yeah.
I saw her dealing with drug abuse, all kind of like alcohol abuse too. And she wasn't in a spot to give me love. You know what I'm saying? So I find myself, I guess I can say I was trying to find my mom and women that I was with. Not consciously, but just really trying to find my mom to get the love that, because for a long time I didn't know how to accept love because my mom couldn't give it to me. I wasn't able to give it to me like I feel that she needed to.
And what does that tend to look like? I only ask because I deal, as a behavior therapist with a lot of young boys who often have a lot of trauma as it relates to their relationship with their mother. Just, kind of the demographics growing up in the community where the father's left, mom's kind of trying to hold it all together, surviving and not able to offer that in the circumstances. What does that, since we say I went to go look for my mom in relationships with women, what does that look like? I really want
Man. So like, for example, your mother wasn't affectionate, didn't give you hugs or things like that, right? Then the first woman who shows you any of that, you may become codependent on that, right? If that's what you like, if that's what you're inclined to, or you try to find somebody who's exactly like that on the opposite side, right? And that goes, with the father too,
Yeah.
right? But we tend to seek or feel whatever we didn't get, or we tend to rebel against the things, you know what I'm saying? And we end up, it's the other side, and it ends up on one side of the coin or the other, right? And it's like that.
When you have that anger,
Yeah,
that almost hatred, right?
I would add to what you say, well, my father, I'm gonna say real quick now.
Yeah.
I tell people all the time, my father probably sacrificed closeness with me to give me toughness that I needed. I was a young, creative type of person, probably a little bit too naive.
Okay.
I needed his toughness, but it did make us sometimes clash.
Yeah.
But if I didn't have that, I probably would have been taken advantage of. So what do?
Sacrifice closeness to teach you. That's a word.
Well, my history, I come from a very strong mother. My mother was in the military. And so I come from a household where she was very strong and she held it together. But it came with a price. It came with the price of her being strong in the home. So the love and the affection and the hugs and things like that, sometimes they weren't there. But she taught us how to survive. I have sisters. So she taught us how to survive. She taught us how to make it. And she was a single mom. So it did manifest later on in life where I had to learn that balance. I had to learn certain things that some people take for granted that are built into a two-parent home or that's built into a home where the mother is feminine. And so I had to embrace and almost be excited about learning my femininity and learning how to balance out some of the survival techniques that my mother taught me in the military, how the military teaches them how to survive. I had to balance that out with how to live and how to thrive.
Can I ask you something?
Of course.
You mentioned your mom being a single mom. What did, because we often talk about, men that often have issues or challenges with their mothers, but what about when you're just a woman disconnected from her father?
Well, yeah, that did pose some challenges as I got older. Same type of a scenario that he was describing when you do meet a man and he shows you love for the first time.
Yeah.
You kind of become really overly excited, a little bit dependent on that. And you start to invest your self-worth in how he feels about you, how he treats you. And then if you're not careful, you start to kind of box yourself into that type of a mentality. You forget to live, you forget to thrive, you forget to be your own person. And so at the end of the day, you lose yourself. You do lose yourself. And then you have to teach, like I said, when that dissolves, because usually it does dissolve because it becomes an unhealthy scenario or it becomes a place where you just kind of lose all sense of self. And of course that's unattractive. It gets to a place of being unattractive. And so at that point, you really have to teach yourself. You have to learn all of the lessons that a woman needs to learn from a father. It never gets to a point where you don't have to learn that. You have to get to a point where you realize you don't have that knowledge, and then you start to see it. And you start to learn and introspect, and you understand why your behavior is the way it is. I myself started to study the opposite gender. I started to study men, and they started to become intriguing to me. Well, why did that happen? And why did they respond that way? And what does that mean when that happens? Learn those lessons that we were supposed to learn. We have to do that self-work and that introspection.
So we're having a little bit of issues with the Wi-Fi. It's starting to go down and up.
It's still streaming.
Yeah, it went out for a second.
Okay.
So I see the Wi-Fi bar down to 1. So,
Okay.
it's just
Well, you
my-
know, this
my
ain't, this
place.
is just a normal day for those with the woman. So we gonna keep it real.
It wouldn't
You
be
know,
right if
I
it didn't
I mean, I do
happen.
live, I cut off, I get on.
Technology don't stop us.
You're about to say something.
Yeah, that brings, so all of us, we really dealing with different trauma.
Absolutely.
I mean, to grow from, being a child, dealing with our parents or whatever, which is our first man and woman we see, or who's supposed to give us love. And then we get into relationships and try to find,
I'm trying to recreate. Yep.
what the,
Meet those Chinese.
does that start the war? Do you think that starts the war?
Well, I often think like, we're ultimately looking to fill voids and these sort of unmet needs that have been unresolved. Like there's a good quote that we have in the behavioral analytical field where we say, like our intimate relationships are simply an extension of our childhood traumas and experiences, right? And so we tend to really recreate these experiences, especially if there is trauma and hurt and pain that goes unresolved, right? We are supposed to experience trauma.
That's
We
right.
are exposed,
That's right.
supposed to experience pain. Now, mashallah, I'm at a place where I'm like, subhanAllah, like the whole objective is to embrace it because within that is your reconnection to the Most High, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? But, right, we've been conditioned to reject it. But if you don't resolve it,
Yeah.
as Allah intends you to, that's why He gives you the experience,
Right.
This is the mercy of Allah, though.
He tests those he loves.
He puts you in a position where you are innately, instinctively drawn to recreate the traumatic experience until you
Until you
solve it.
learn from it.
Until you-
That's His
Wow.
love, though.
Yes.
That's what's going to
Yes.
unshackle you. That's what's going to
Definitely.
unshackle you and bring you to Him.
If you catch yourself in a cycle, it's because you're not learning something.
And that's just a manifestation of Allah.
And,
Yes,
and,
it
and,
is.
and I would say that that's the funny thing is that to tell people, just in case people want to reject that concept, it's in everything.
It's difficult.
Everything you want requires that same process. This is why La ilaha illallah is so important.
Yeah.
Because if you want to be in shape, you're gonna have to resolve the challenge. You're gonna have to break down when you do push-ups. It's gonna hurt. Sometimes you're actually gonna get injured.
Yep.
You're gonna have to do therapy to come back from it, and that's gonna build you up.
Come on.
If you are trying to be a good student or a good intellectual, whatever case, you gotta study. And it's painful at first. Sometimes I don't want to do this. I'm tired.
Right.
But you push through so you can pass the test. So Allah is saying, I created a thing where if you do that same thing for me, I'm going to give you something great for it. Then we're like, I don't want that from you. But then we're like, then we go after it for everything else.
Yeah, that part. That part.
And that ends up being, that ends up in the issue book. We were created that way to support what you said. There's the ayah where Allah said we were created into heavy burdens or into adversity
Yeah.
or into trauma. You could actually use the word trauma
Right.
for that word. So
We often talk about generational trauma and trauma just like Black people, slave, all those sort of concepts. I talk about it often as well. But we have to be careful because that's also comes from this concept that if you don't have trauma, you're pristine, you're white, you're pure, right? No, but what happened as a result of this trauma? Who's the leading demographic of Muslims in America? Right? After that converted, that came back to Islam.
right.
Black people, African American people that are traumatized, right? So obviously within that, there's an element of reconnection to our source. And so there is a little bit, as you mentioned, a bit on your journey of embracing that and embracing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to gift you with traumatic experiences as a gift. I need to ask them, can we get to something?
Bring it up. Come on.
We was talking. I don't want to get into it. I gotta let the brothers answer. So one of the big conflicts. Are we having issues about?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. Look straight. Okay, one of the big conflicts we see constantly have over and over and over is monogamy, polygyny, fidelity, the idea of brothers out here on the streets, placing women, always wanting multiple women. And it causes huge breakdown, miscommunication, misunderstanding, and honestly, a lot of hurt. I want to just ask you guys, as men who, mashallah, you guys kind of stand firm and, your masculinity. You choose the relationship construct that works for you unapologetically.
Mhm.
Alhamdulillah. What's your analysis on it? Like, what do you think is behind all of the pain and the conflict and the war? This is one thing which prevents the male and the female to come to the table sometimes. Walk a little fast in it. Okay, Nasheed, go ahead.
He got to jump in on this. He has.
Okay.
So when you were talking, when I had my first conversation about me taking on another wife, it was said to me, "Why can I be enough?" And man, I felt it. I felt it because I love this lady. You know what I mean? And she's like really sincerely asking me, "Why can I be enough?" I didn't have an answer for it. Like I knew what I wanted, and that was another wife. So I mean, we had a conversation.
So it hurt you that she asked the question when you say it?
It hurt because I understood.
Yeah.
And I wanted, I promise you, I wish she could be my only woman. I wish, really, for real.
Can you help us understand how you wish that? Okay.
This woman is a great woman. She's been with me forever, right?
Absolutely.
And I wish that I could be enough for her. I mean, I wish that Hold on.
We open.
I really do. I mean, I really wish that I could be the only man that in her life. You know what I mean?
But okay,
there's desires in me that I have to. For me, polygamy is like if I didn't do it, it would be like losing a leg. Like it would be like a limb being cut off. For me.
For you, because.
It's like something. Yeah, it's no different. I mean, it's like the best way to put it is the inclination. The best way I can explain it is that the same way that we don't understand the inclination to pregnancy, despite the pain.
Right.
I don't think women can understand the inclination to polygyny that men have because it's a lot of responsibility, right? It's a lot of responsibility. You understand what I'm saying? It's a lot of so the same way that I have, I don't understand the inclination to pregnancy. I don't understand what happens with hormones when women have periods and like that. Women don't understand inclination to polygyny, and that's okay. No. We weren't made to understand everything about each other, and that's okay. So when he's talking about desire, and I know because people hear desires and then they hit it, it's like a bad word for them, right? It's a bad word, but Allah beautified the relationship so that men we could take care of y'all too. Right? In a similar way, like at the end of the day, y'all literally go through pain, 9 months, trauma, then raise people for 18 years and want more. I want another one. Do you even know why? You don't know why fully. You just do. I want another kid. You know what? Right? What he's saying is that what is in him, and it's not in everyone, but what is in him is something that Allah put in him, right? It's not, some of it is not even to be explained. It is. It just is, right? And what I've learned to do is to stop trying to explain, actually, right? Because there is beauty and goodness in leaving some things to the unseen, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did a lot of things that we won't know until the day of judgment, right? Mm-hmm. But it's there. And it's proved by the fact that Allah, one, he made his greatest servants, his messengers. Many of them were that. And then he approved and allowed it, right? So that's the proof, right? That it's within the framework of the fitrah, right? So besides that, it's some things is not to be explained, right? It's not about her being enough. What I would tell my wife is you are absolutely enough. This is separate. This is just different. I know it, right? It's just different. That's all I have. Because some of it is not to be explained.
So I have a question. What would you say to men who they think they have this desire? And I'm saying they think for a reason. They think they have this desire, but they don't have the capability, nor do they have the understanding of how to do it. And in that, they end up leaving a toxic trail behind them as they go through marriage after marriage after marriage after marriage.
They don't know whether they're coming
The
or
same-
not.
the
It's
same
not
way-
to be
the-
explained. Sounds like you might be in a confused state.
I would say the same thing that we would tell men who are in monogamy, because there are more men in monogamy living toxic trails of relationships than polygyny. The polygyny is still a fringe relationship in the grand scheme of things. So just like men have to learn responsibility. All polygyny is that it's scale, right? You have to learn responsibility in the first place.
Right.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
So you would say that, or is it safe to say that if you can't make one woman happy, you can't make two?
Well, I'm not even going to say that. You go ahead.
Nah. Go ahead. You fight.
No, I'm saying, one, if you can't manage your responsibility because she has to make herself happy, and we have to do that together, because some women aren't happy no matter what you do, whether it's monogamy, polygyny, or anything. Just like some men aren't happy. It's the same because they have a problem internally. So sometimes the happiness is not about him too. It's not just about that, right? But if he is not doing what he is supposed to be doing in front of the law and, right, understanding and being a student, right, in a relationship, right? Because it takes both, knowing how to cultivate that, the relationship and the life. But that's a progress. And it takes a village, just like it takes a village in monogamy, and just as much as the problem of polygyny, just as much the problem is the man, it is that the society closes against polygyny such that there aren't resources to hone and to bring up people in a way that they can manage it. So
Can I
it's a
just,
bigger problem.
I want to just chime in. Well, everybody knows my brother's from another mother. So, but I want to just say this. I think that although I agree with you, and I even said that, there are some things as a woman that I can't really ultimately explain. You'll probably never be able to conceptualize and understand, and vice versa. However, just like with my children, I may want them to do X, Y, and Z. I know the logic and reasoning. They just need to do it, et cetera, et cetera. But at the same time, when it comes to our hearts and our relationships, and even just like an element of, I would even say, safety and security, do you feel like there's a balance to be had as it relates to just being willing to sort of create some mutual understanding, even with the concept that we know that we'll never be able to fully conceptualize? Because at the end of the day, this is a complex sort of dynamic that does cause people a lot of pain.
Yes.
I know, just as a
Yes.
woman, I will say this, just as a woman, and if I could be very transparent, this is my stuff. It's not your stuff, but I'm just going to be honest. It may trigger something that was with my mom, my grandmother, great grandmother. Not being enough don't really come from, who does that?
Real talk.
Where'd that birth
Real
from?
talk.
Right? So sometimes I do need you to sit with me. Sometimes I do need you to hold my hand, and I may need you to explain. Right? It's not that it's that I'm making it your responsibility, but like you said, collectively healing that just the same. Like your masculinity was stripped from you. Your ability to be a true provider, as Allah gave you that right, was stripped, right, from you. And that may create some sort of imbalance within you as you, like you said, suppress your emotions, how you deal with your woman. Wouldn't it be, I don't have to take that. I don't have to deal with that. I could move like that. But me sitting with you and trying to is that where we are? Do you understand what I'm saying?
No, what you're saying is forbearance, and this is the
Okay,
difference. And
okay.
this is what we have to have. This is prophetic. Forbearance is prophetic, and that's different from. See, sometimes we get in trouble explaining away everything.
Okay.
Sitting with someone in patience and saying the same thing over, reassuring that I love you.
Right.
Remember, our polygynous relationships for Muslims are like two monogamous relationships, right? They're not merged things, right? My job with you is to make sure you're good. If I have to sit with you and tell you that 1,000,000 times that I love you, that I'm there for you, that this, right, is something different. I'm not going to, here's why I have to be disciplined. Sometimes I try to explain something I can't explain and it becomes a lie. I get in trouble. So there's a point at which you explain and you lie because you're trying to explain something you can't explain. So in becoming a liar unintentionally, you hurt her more. So instead of that, it should be explained to the point where you know you can be truthful and you believe she can take it, and that's a work in progress. You don't even know that fully. You have to gauge it as you go, and then ask her to give you forbearance because you don't always know what you're saying. But then after that, sit with her for 1,000,000 years because she's worth it. Do you see the difference? Because she's working, and that's different.
See, I didn't receive it that way the first time you said it.
Okay.
Can I just say that? I didn't receive
No,
it.
when I was talking about explaining it, meaning that I don't know. There's a point in which I don't know. And he was saying, he was basically, and when I was reiterating the point that he's like, it's just in there, right? And he was just explaining like, I don't know why. I wish that I could X, Y, and Z. But I realized what he was saying. What I'm saying is that at the point that you don't know, you should say you don't know. That's fine. I'm at the point where, look, this is there. I know it's there. I'm as sure of it as I am of anything I am as a man. But I can sit with you and comfort you however you need. I just can't give you that because it's not there. That's truthful. If I give you anything else, I start lying, and that gets me in trouble. And I have to be strong too, right? Because there's a level at which men sometimes, in our effort to try to appease that, we become liars. We can't do that because the truth, the haq, is the only thing that's going to set us free. Sometimes it means that a sister might come to the conclusion that she can't deal with it. That's okay if you are amicable too, right? Allah has allowed that, right? Allah wants cordiality. He wants kindness. He wants cultivation. I might have to cultivate you in a way that makes you say, listen, I can't deal with it. And that's the hard lesson that nobody wants to hear, because marriage is God. Marriage should not be God. Marriage is a means to get to God.
It's just a vehicle.
Right? That's the difference. Marriage is not God. Right? So we are trying to get to Allah. Right? And the way I get to Allah is to be kind and forbearing to you as much as possible. But I will not lie to you, no matter what you want.
Okay. Can we get a comment in? Because I know that. What the sister saying? What are the sisters saying on here?
About this part of the conversation, nothing. Except for that is a great conversation.
Okay. So,
think-
go ahead.
I think one of the things that us as sisters have, I was in a polygamous relationship before. And so one of the things I believe that's important for sisters to the place they have to get to within self is independence, away from thinking that that their husband wanting another wife somehow reflects on them, and having a space of safety within themselves, their own confidence, their own life, their own strength within self.
But don't you feel like, I don't want to cut you off, but I want you to chime into this point as you're making it. Don't you feel like that we also need to create resources and support for that?
Definitely.
Because this is, in this
Yes.
society,
Yes.
they eat you alive.
Yes.
with
They
that.
will.
And then we're like, oh, sister, be strong. What?
Yeah, no.
Like, I mean,
It's not a be strong by yourself in a corner, just
Yeah.
tough it out. It's not a man up.
it's not.
It's
Yes.
not a man up.
Yeah.
It's you have support. There's a support system. There are other sisters out there. It's not a competition between you and the other woman. A lot of times, if you can command your own space, and this is, have your own security within self of knowing who you are, a lot of times you can separate the emotional trauma that comes from feeling like I'm sharing. And half
I'm
of
not.
half
Which
of
is
my
the core of it. I'm not.
right
That's
at
the
the
core
core,
of
right?
it.
I'm not enough.
Yeah.
It's not. It's me that's there's something wrong with me, and that's why he's looking for something else. When a lot of times, and correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of times the woman that husbands marry is completely different than us.
Mhm.
And so we command our own space and our own personality and our own likes and dislikes, and they love us for who we are, independently and individually.
We don't lose love for you, we gain it. This is what Allah, and it's not in our control. Allah says that He puts love and mercy between us, and I mean it. And I'm almost in tears because I know that. I can say it from its Allah is something that Allah does, and this is what I'm saying. We have to practice some of relying on Allah and dealing with the unseen. This is a problem that we're having now today, is that everything must be measured, everything is tangible, and if I can't understand it or see it, I'm saying that this is you see what I'm saying? This is how we get over trauma, because remember, everything that happened to us came by the permission of Allah, everything.
Right. Yeah.
And you know that Allah is merciful, so when you put that together, you know that everything that happened, it was by design, and it's bigger than Him. What happens is that what Shaitan does is, remember, and this happens to men in divorce too. Rejection is one of the hardest things human beings can go through. As a man, it just happens with men in divorce, where it happens with women in polygyny, right? And divorce.
Yeah.
But rejection and not just rejection, replacement after that rejection.
Mm.
No, this is what happened to Shay
Because that's
Paul.
like rejection of
Yes.
Abandonment.
Those
Yes.
are those like
Yes.
original ones, yeah.
I don't think people
They
understand.
probably
This was a
probably
traumatic. Shay Khan's trial with Allah was trauma. You're gonna replace me? Now he was deluded. Now you gotta think about this. This is delusion.
Yeah.
This was straight what we would call insanity. He had an insane moment. Allah wasn't replacing him. He created a creation with that own love. They were two different beings and entities, and he didn't take anything from him.
Mhm.
But what Allah was doing was exposing to him something that was inside of himself.
Right.
And it was for the purpose, and I believe because Allah is infinitely merciful, because he asked them the question afterwards, why did you not prostrate? This was an opportunity to say, I'm sorry, just like Adam. Adam said immediately, I'm sorry. In that moment, that exposure that should have been, we all get exposed. Now let's think about this for us. We all have moments where we are exposed to ourselves. Our pride is right there in front of us and we have a decision to make. Yo, I think I'm better than him. Why you're getting married to that dude after you were with me? Or you're getting married to her? Why are you with me? Are you out of your mind?
Mhm.
Are you out of your mind? That moment is a trick because we think there's a comparison. But you are you. Every single one of us had to have a different fingerprint. That person cannot take away from you.
I get that. Theoretically, it makes 100%. Do you guys contribute to women filming again?
Yes.
Honestly, real talk.
Yes.
Okay.
And how we do it, well, one, we're trained that way. We're in a society that trains that way. They train us that way.
We fake in comparison.
Yeah.
That's what makes it hard for us to accept.
This
Because
society.
yeah,
we're
this
trained that
society.
way.
Listen, there's a whole lot of toxicity I had to get out of me. I had to learn this. I didn't know it was there, right? I didn't
Our
know.
children to compare.
We do. It's right in the school system.
Okay.
It's
I mean,
just-
I
it's
literally
just
think
normal,
about it,
right?
even just as I come out of, just working with children every day and the structures that we condition them to
And
look at everything.
It's worse with girls. Girls are constantly pit against each other. So
That's why I
With
said,
the
like, being
environment.
sensitive to that wound also, I think there's space for that, not denouncing who you guys are as men, but just kind of also having, because it's like, y'all be like, oh yeah, just understand this is the way we are. Okay, but also kind of being a little bit compassionate in your approach. I know you brothers are a little bit different, but some of the conversations that you get really unhealthy on both
right,
sides.
really unhealthy.
And I think there's space for like,
There has to be a safe space. This is a very sensitive subject that it's addressed a lot in our communities where we're constantly talking about it, and a lot of times it goes from one extreme to the next. And so yeah, it's definitely something that has to be nurtured on both ends. The woman has to feel safe. She has to feel protected. She has to feel like this is not something that's going to end her what she has set up in her life and her normalcy. And the love that she's invested in this man, and the dedication that she's given to him, she has to be comforted to that point, because this society does tell that woman that if he has another woman, that she's being replaced, that there's something inadequate about her.
The only way that men can actually do what y'all need to have done is that we have to believe in a thing greater than you.
That's the way.
We cannot do it
Yeah.
if we're putting all the pressure on you. Allah, it's not just our relationship with you. Our default is to forbear. This is what we've learned from every messenger that there was, who was thrown in the fire, thrown in the wells. If we don't look at it from a standpoint that this is a trial to be won, from an Allah standpoint, we're going to lose. And I know people like, that's spiritual stuff. Listen, Malcolm X said that Islam was the cure, right? And I don't care. I'm gonna go back to it over and over again. I'm not talking about the super over your head stuff. I'm talking about basic training, because you can go into, like I said, you can go to the military thing again and look at how they train them, and that is to forbear, no matter what's coming at you, right? So I don't want to hear this stuff about spirituality is the greatest ideal reflection of life, right? That happens, that we all incline to. So when people reject it and say, that's over their head, they don't realize that they're rejecting that and then taking something that copies it. Bottom line is, if we don't train, and I mean this, don't train, we ain't gonna be able to be there for y'all. And it's not about y'all. That's actually not about y'all.
It's not. It shouldn't be.
It's not about y'all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And some women can't accept that either. I will say that.
Well, that's a lie we tell ourselves, because truly, if it was all about us,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
kind of get tired of it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a lie we tell ourselves. That's also fed by society. So that's not really truly a woman wants a man that has a mission. Right.
But most can't take it. Most can't deal with it. On the other side, because we're talking about men. Now we got to talk about the other side of that. Most women can't deal with it with the guy with a mission outside of it, because because the society condition on the woman's side is that if you don't, I give you an example. One of the greatest tropes in movies is the superhero who, after saving the world, gives it up
To give the girl.
to go to the girl and ride into the sunset. The vast majority of superhero movies, that's what happens, because that's more important than the mission. In Islam, worshiping Allah is the mission, establishing community and establishing ourselves at Islam as the way of life that is dominant is our mission.
Right.
It is not to be given up.
Yeah.
You are the first priority after it, but after it. But I tell you what, healed people will love it. But
Yeah.
we got to all do our healing work.
We gotta do the work.
We got to do our healing.
Collect individually. Are we still good, brother? With the comments?
Yeah, I think people are just enjoying the conversation.
Shout out to our producer one more.
I'm on time.
I'm on time.
More listening and less typing.
I think
Go ahead.
y'all was saying that there needs to be more conversation. I think there will start to be more conversation, because non-Muslims are talking about polygamy like crazy, right?
Mr. Rock love the chain. You see that, Sean?
Yeah, I'm seeing it.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't see it, but I'm just like, normal podcasts, you just hear people talk about polygamy or whatever. However, I think that we should be, because you said earlier, we have a blueprint
Absolutely.
when it comes to the relationship, but it's like we fail. Like, why are we not taking these lessons? We should be at the forefront of teaching these people how this should be, how this should go, and we're not.
So I'm gonna jump in and say it's probably because the approach is wrong. Like 85% of the time, the approach to polygamy, not 85% of the time, the approach to polygamy is, I will say it, of a pimp mentality. It's, hey,
You can't say that. Y'all can't admit that comes.
it's a street mentality that flows into polygamy. It's
I'm
not
saying also relationships, also not just polygamy. I'm saying in relationships.
That's my point. My
But
point
is that dismissive when you guys do that? I'm sorry.
No.
Is it though? Honestly, if we're saying like if we're just addressing this right now, we understand monogamy and all relationships have issues. But if we're dealing with this one issue and we're talking about it, can we just address it without going back and say, well, that's all relationships?
I'm gonna tell you why.
Does that take away from what we're discussing?
Because it's connected. Like the two polygyny or two monogamous. Here's why. Because you can't disconnect. Like here's the problem. If you disconnect relationships from polygyny, it's not fair. Like they're relationships,
I'll
right?
add a little bit of color.
Okay.
Let me add a little bit of color to that. What I mean by pimp mentality is it is approached with competition in mind. It is approached from a narcissistic point where the man says, because I want two women and these women are here to make me feel a certain way, I take them both and then I pit them against each other and they have to compete over me and fight over me. He does defeat my
No, I mean, I'm just saying.
and that becomes more and more the norm and the standard. We don't see a lot of healthy polygamy. And it's not put to the forefront. It's not displayed as something. Right. The healthy ones are not. I don't know if hiding. Well, yeah, hiding because they don't want the eye, and there's a lot of talking that goes on behind. But it's the men who are using it for like the pimp mentality that are boasting about it.
That's
that
true.
are
That's true.
that are putting it out there like.
That's true. Absolutely. 100%. I
So
think
that's why us
yeah.
as women, it's hard for us to even hear the concept because the majority of time that we hear that concept or we see it, it's from that type of a
Or justify
No, I think-
cheating and then calling it
Right,
that.
right.
That's
Just
true.
steady like, and I'll just
Just
give a
saying
real
it
life
exists.
example. I'll just give you a real life example. When I was in polygamy, my husband at the time had a revolving door of potentials.
Mhm.
His focus was never on the current relationship because he was consistently trying to hunt for the next one. And when they didn't meet the criteria, he had another one standing in line. The day that I got married, the day that I had my daughter, he was on the phone with another woman, a potential. So it's all, it gets to a point where we can have solidity in ourselves, we can have confidence in ourselves, we can have independence in ourselves, we can have, you know, a position of, okay, it's okay, if this is what Allah has, you know, meant for me, and, you know, I can accept it, alhamdulillah. But when we're faced with the other side being, you know, it's for his pleasure, it's for his ego, it's for his lifestyle choice, then it makes it a bad taste in our mouth when we're approached with it again. It's like, no, I don't think I want to go down that road. And just to be really transparent with you, even though I did it in the past, it's not something I would choose for myself in the future, just because of the trail that was left behind. And I, you know, he brought these women to live in the house with me, and I was a sister wife. I was welcoming to them, and they lived with me, and we had broke bread, and he ended up messing those relationships up. So even after I made friends with 2 of the co-wives that ended up marrying him, it never lasted because he was doing it for the wrong reason. It wasn't part of the law's plan.
No, go ahead. I just see a little rude.
Maybe
We should let Nasheed go. You know you bounce back.
What I see is, because it put a bad taste in your mouth, but the sister who was watching it, or the sister who was told about it, it put a bad taste in her mouth, and I think it just goes on like that. Ever even been approached with polygamy, now she has a bad taste in her mouth about it, even though it could be a thing that's for her.
Okay.
Fair. That's fair. And I'm not saying that there's any, and I would say this, I've seen it successful. And it is one of the most beautiful sisterhood bonding experience that I've seen. I've lived in Egypt. There were sister wives that had a flat up in upstairs from each other. They cooked together. They each one took a separate night to watch the kids, and it was a real family. And that is something. I'm just saying that was something beautiful for me to see. And they were Americans. They had moved over to Egypt to be in that environment. And the brother had bought both of them. It's a lot cheaper to live over there. Mm-hmm. He had bought both of them their own apartments, and because you buy apartments over there, and it was just a beautiful setup. That was prior to me myself accepting polygamy. So when I saw that beauty, I was like, oh yeah, I can do this. I can do this. It's okay. So when my husband, decided he wanted to have another wife, it's something that I had to swallow, but it was something that I had seen in such a positive light that I was like, sure, it's his approach and how he did it that caused me to have a second take at, wait a minute, do I want and do I trust that a man knows how to do this properly moving forward?
So we need to be trained.
So my whole thing is, and in my head, I would think to myself, well, logically, I can't do it again unless he's already trained. I can't be the first wife, right? I wouldn't be able to be the first wife again, or I wouldn't be able to. Yeah, sure.
No, I mean, listen. First of all, let me validate everything you're saying. This is first important, because I know sometimes people think I'm not doing that, right? So let me validate everything you said. I'm a Wakil. I've seen destruction at the hands of so much, right? And polygyny included, right? The law says speak truth even against self, right? So, right? My thing is this, right? What I won't do, because this can't happen in any situation, right? Is that what we have to remember is this. The individual who is abusing polygyny is an abuser. It's not polygyny. Mm-hmm. Period. And here's the proof of that, right? I will not explain for people, right, the good in something that Allah has made inherently good. Just like I won't explain for people who don't know Muslims that they're not terrorists. I won't explain for people who don't know black fathers that they're more black fathers than in lives. Usually what happens is that when someone doesn't want a thing or like a thing, and this is what people don't like, it's very convenient to find the problems, right? And it's harder to actually find the good ones. And this is a product not of people, but of shaitan, right? But it happens everywhere. It's not about polygyny. You've had this conversation. It's actually not about polygyny. This happens everywhere right? So that's why I'm not offended by it. It's okay because it happens, right? But people who don't know a lot of black people think that black people have are not good to their children. Then come to find out, black men are actually more in their children's lives than everybody else, but you don't see it. You actually hear about all the deadbeats. You know why? Because that's the narrative that Shaitan wants to push. We take him out of that, right? So, and that what I'm saying is that there are thousands of people who like polygyny, tens of thousands, Muslim and non-Muslim, who are open to it, who are open-minded about it, who you don't hear about because they're actually just trying to handle their business, right? So this is just no different than everything else. There are a lot more good examples than that would be publicized, just like I talked about Black fathers, just like Black people, just like interracial relationships, just like anything where someone doesn't like a thing. And my point to y'all is that it's not on me or people who are striving, because I'm not perfect. I've made my mistakes, to explain all day about the bad apples because they're bad apples. Of course, the bad apples are always bad apples in everything. Are there bad apples who destroy stuff? And this is what I will acknowledge to you about polygyny.
All right, I'm listening.
Polygyny, the problem, what makes it worse is that when the bad apples are polygyny, more people get hurt. This is the unique aspect of polygyny, is that more children, more women, and this is why it's more of a responsibility and they have to answer to Allah. So let me be clear.
Okay.
You engage in polygyny, you better be doing more training than we were just talking about before. First with your Lord, because you better be serious about life, period.
Tahajjud has to be a part of your life.
You can't.
It has to be a part of your life.
You can't play with things like tahajjud no more, right? Because you've decided to take on more. To whom much is given, much is expected. So for those who have done that and not acknowledged that, yes, you're seeing that. That's real.
It is real.
That's absolutely real.
Okay.
My challenge to you all and to everyone is this: to not make that the narrative, because I guarantee you, I can tell you a million things where every time that's the narrative, you go behind closed doors where the story is less told and you find a different narrative. It's no different than polygyny. I know as a person who's been around and actually decided to do my research. And what I learned is just like everything else, the people who are doing the work don't care about telling you about it.
I acknowledge that. Can we pull in the comment before your time? I know
Somebody put a mean face.
Saying?
Somebody put an angry face.
Well, it says, as the brother said, feelings within. I guess as women, we have this innate thing to want a child. Men feel innately they have more than one wife. Some men say they are not interested in more than one wife. Some women say they don't want children, but it's rare. Your thoughts?
Oh, I think that's what.
Yeah, he was saying.
We said it, but we're not going far with that.
Yeah.
What else did they say, brother?
Doreen Mary said, my wife said something.
Non-Muslims give support more than Muslims. Muslims look down at it and come at you really ugly when you are in polygamy.
I think he was talking about that. And I mean, like I said, I think that if we want to be fair, there is two sides to the coin. I know we've had these conversations about like what's underneath the discomfort of the pain, because there's always something at its core, right? Like we said, not enough, so that's self-worth, which that's an issue that we've been dealing with for a long time. We need to continuously address that, and I can't fix that with you.
And by the way, when unhealthy men, when they are not enough, they abuse polygyny.
That part.
See what I'm saying? Their version of not being enough is literally to find women after women after women after women after women, right? To validate them.
Yeah, that's
right?
what she's right.
So that's happening too, right? And so it's really, but it's always, and what I'm saying is and I guarantee this is why we're Muslim.
Are you trying to say that? There's no victim in the story?
And I can see that balance. I really can see that
What I'm
balance.
saying is what makes us Muslim is this. Why we submit is that when we see Allah actually do something, not only with his examples, but with what he says, we stop. We have a point where we stop. This is what submission is.
Yeah.
There is a stop point, right? For everything where Allah has given, especially where Allah has validated. There are a lot of things where Allah hasn't validated, where we will approve it like forever.
Right.
But when we don't like a thing, we don't realize that we don't realize that this La ilaha illallah thing is the biggest trial we're gonna have in our life. We think, when we say it, it's done.
Yeah. So let me just say, it's not really polygamy that we don't like.
Yes.
It's just the betrayal. It's the hurt. It's the pain. It's
Thank
not
you.
polygamy that we're
Thank
running from. We're running
Thank
from
you.
the destruction of unhealthy people entering into a situation that they cannot handle.
But you know, even deeper than that at its core, right? What we really are uncomfortable with is anything that smashes the ideal. See, I put my self-worth and the fact that you're gonna be married to me for the rest of my life with my 2 kids and my white picket fence. That's my ideal. I sold that to myself. That means I'm worthy. Everybody else in the society is gonna validate that. I'm worthy. Because it smashes that ideal, that's the real discomfort.
And I think polygamy coming out from the shadows, healthy polygamy coming out from the shadows and standing there and showing that white picket fence with that full family, I think that's something that we do need because, like I said,
Everybody has the right to choose their own
well,
relationship. I mean, you don't have to force
but
anybody.
we need
Everybody
to see the
choose their own.
positive aspect a little bit more because, like I said, the negative aspect just keeps being rah rah and social media and plastered across.
And there's some nasty bullies out there that relate to people that make a conscious, peaceful choice. The simple plural relationship.
Right.
What goes on behind the scenes with that, with people that don't want that to exist,
Mhm.
is nastier than what. I mean, we never talk about that.
The
Right?
level of
It's
strategy
extremely
to destroy
Right.
is
Come
crazy.
on now, and then it goes on top. Like it goes. Nobody ever.
It's literally the way Satan is. Like he's devious. It's devious. But and to your point, because I like the balance, I have to speak to our point. Like our this pie in the sky concept of submission. Let me be honest, I don't like submissiveness and submission as a word that we use. I personally for women to us. That's different from obedience. See, submissiveness has a connotation in English as
Not even
just
our
giving myself up to you without any type of
Exactly.
resistance, good or bad.
Exactly.
That's different from obedience. I obey my boss. When my boss tells me to actually write something down, but I'm not gonna give him my
I'm not
soul.
jumping over. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
not jumping
There's
off
a
the
level.
bridge because he's
Yeah.
off the bridge.
We
Right.
will rebel against obedience, which we do every day, right? Because we don't like the word for some reason, but obedience is really clear. I'm gonna obey you as long as what you're saying is reasonable, rational, and that type of thing, right? I still have my soul intact, right? Right? And I have to obey the law. So everybody's obeying something. And I gotta obey people who are in authority over me. So everybody has to obey something in their life, right?
Right. We use submissiveness to me.
But submissiveness is
I've definitely had to redefine that. I call it powerful.
That's a
submission.
very recent shift for me because I definitely
I
don't know
had
people
to-
that
You
have
have-
an issue with obedience. Because come on. I remember at Eve one time, the mom got on the joint and was like, "Sisters, you ain't obedient unless you sucking the pussy out of the." I don't know. Anyway, it's just been a lot of trauma with the word, but you're absolutely right. When you look at the definition, and the law did define it, and I know my husband always says like it's the actual translation of the word in the religious text is it translates obedience.
we don't have a
Submissiveness
we submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I want you to submit to Allah, not to me. Like there's even we don't even like that. We want a little bit of that. Hey, I mean, don't give me every no. It ain't, come to America. Coming to America.
A woman to just lay down. Y'all can go get another one. Like, just tell the truth. If a woman just lay it down, okay, sure, baby. Y'all go find the next sister that gives you a little shout.
Spice.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
We got the Eddie Murphy syndrome a little bit, you know what I mean? We don't, coming to America when he's like,
Yeah. I'm a big dog.
We don't want the earth. No. I need
I'm going to Queens.
right. Any man.
That's yeah. Sister got a little. She had a little
We
edge to her.
going to Queens, right?
Queens.
But why y'all lie to the sisters though? Why do y'all lie to the women and pretend that that's what y'all want? Not y'all,
Right, yeah. No, it's what they think. It's the same thing you were saying about the sisters. It's what men have been conditioned to think the answer is to them not being enough. So they're looking for something that doesn't exist, just like women are.
Yeah.
That's it, but it's in submissiveness. Why you hear it all the time.
Right.
Because men are looking, they've been taught and told, and they're actually listening to the word, which really shouldn't happen, should be in their vocabulary about how we are with our women. But they're looking for this piety, just like women are looking for that picket fence.
I agree.
You see what I'm saying? Men have been conditioned in that way, and that's why they're unhappy and never really
We're satisfied.
right. We are trying to get to the point where if Allah takes everything, we are grateful for the flower or the grass that's beside us.
Yeah.
That's the goal,
Right.
right? That's the goal. Now, if Allah brings us privilege and other things, that's privilege. To have another wife is privilege too. But if He gives us that, it's also the biggest responsibility too. But if sometimes Allah takes it away. And when Allah takes it away, we gotta be grateful. We gotta be more grateful.
Right.
But it's about that, right? So I'll stop.
All right, our time. We can go on.
We got some guests we got to talk to real quick.
Yes, we do have to bring in. So, alhamdulillah, I had the privilege, you guys, of speaking to the phenomenal. Well, she's the wife and the supporter of the playwright who we have here today. But the stage play, which we're all going to, right? We're all going to get it tomorrow.
Right.
Inshallah.
Inshallah,
Yeah,
we're going tomorrow.
True to My Religion.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's a phenomenal play. I got a chance to interview Inshira, and everybody really loves, Inshira and her husband, Salahuddin. Am I saying it right? I always think, is it not Salahuddin? Okay. Brother Salahuddin. And got to talk really about the storyline and just some deeper issues. And what I love, and I know we often talk about this, and I know we are all creatives here, is that, mashallah, anyone that gives dawah, gives this message of the deen through creative expression, mashallah, may Allah bless, mashallah. Because it reaches people, but people don't even know that it's coming to, it's different from handing somebody a pamphlet or saying, come into this class. Like, you come to a play, it can disseminate and reach so many more people. So may Allah bless those who know, to have the knowledge to put it in creative expression. So do you want to bring up our brother?
Yeah, so actually, you could bring your chair right here. You'll probably be good and where everybody will see you. I don't know if Inshira is. You don't have to do anything.
She has to be.
Okay. So you can bring your chair like
but this
right
is because
here.
we didn't get a chance to interview Brother Salahuddin. We talked to his wife.
He'll be a little bit out of focus, but y'all do it.
You
This is like right here, right here. Turn it, no, turn it to the side, right? This, right? All right. So if you sit down right there, because Sabria, you can talk to him a little bit about,
How's it? Okay, looking all right?
How you think?
Okay, all right, brother. So, mashallah, when we interviewed your wife, she was very clear. Mashallah, may Allah bless you have your wife. But she was very good. I would take the credit. I didn't make the show. But she was like, I just supported, this is my husband. He wrote the play. It's his vision. Mashallah, can you first just tell us a little bit about it? Yes.
That's what's happening. Welcome, man.
And like, he's big time.
Yes, sir.
Right. Can you talk us through a little bit about the vision of True to My Religion?
Okay.
Like, where did it stem from? Where did it get birth from?
It got birth in prison. I did 5 years, so that's where I started to do my writing. When I really started writing it. So
I'll sit right next to you.
Put my shoes back.
Okay.
that's basically where it started from. I was locked up in Georgia, Department of Corrections. It was 3 of us down from DC in the prison system down there. And I linked up with another guy, and he was like, man, I was writing different type of kind of books and stuff like that, like urban stories. And he was like, man, you don't need to write that. You need to write something for like the family. And I was like, you're right. I'm Muslim. I don't need to be writing this stuff. So I changed it up and we wrote the gigs. The Go-Go Wizard of Oz. If anybody familiar with DC, we got our own style of music. So we wrote the Go-Go version of the Wiz. And from there, I was like, I want to write a Muslim play. But I had this written as a movie. But when I came home, just changed it up to a play style.
Mashallah.
That's inspiring, man.
Right. So the story, and I know we can't give away no secrets because everybody's coming to the show, inshallah. It's an opening show. We're going to drop the dates and time. Oh, come on over and Shira. Look at this love story up here. With child, mashallah. She's going to come with that.
Should be over her though.
Okay.
So she moves a little bit closer to him. They be trolls, so they
They cool. They
closer.
a little closer.
So now we
Okay. So Inshira shared a little bit that the storyline was about a father that made some mistakes in life. I know he's
It's right. It's right.
We want to make sure she was
Yeah, see everybody.
Okay. I can make this a whole little show.
Little bit more. There we go.
After hours love show. That's what it look like, my
Don't worry.
happy she don't like it right now.
I feel like I'm suffocating with the ease. And she have to be outside.
No, he can move back. He can
Oh,
move back.
yeah.
He can move back. Now you move forward just a little bit, and then you're good. I just want to see. Okay, there we go.
Okay.
So logic again.
So it was a story about a brother, a man who had some challenges in life. He had some children, right? So is this really a story about a father? Is that what we're?
Yeah.
That is really.
It's really about the father and the son dynamic. Like I was just talking about trauma, so
Yeah.
I mean it's filled with a lot of trauma. It's just like I took different pieces of people in my life that I know and took different stories and just turned it into one family. So
Beautiful. Can we ask the opposite? So how is it working together? Because most of us can't work with our spouses. So what's that like? Is it beautiful or is it a beautiful struggle?
It's a beautiful struggle.
MashaAllah.
It's definitely a struggle because, like I said, he's a creative. I'm a creative too, but then I'm also more on the business side of everything. So I'm always constantly. He say I'm the one who say no. But I'm like,
you don't understand.
yeah, I'm like, no, it's not a no. It's can we do it? Can it make sense? And he's like, it's gonna work out. Allah, you just gotta have faith.
That's me.
I'm like, no. And he's like, do you trust me? Do you trust in the law? You don't trust in the law. You don't trust in the law? You don't trust in the law? I trust in the law. What does that have to do? Yes. What does this have to do? Yeah. That's my favorite word.
my defense, when I came out of prison, me and my partner Lavelle, we ain't know nothing about stage plays. And our first stage play was like the MGM. So it's like,
Wow.
I'm like, anything can happen.
Wow.
So I believe in a lot. So I was like, that was all.
Do you trust the law?
I don't even know how that happened.
And then the thing is, he said, I win it. And a lot of people blessed. I'm like, but you can't do that forever. He's like this. Oh, somebody tell him that. Because he's like this. He's like, who's in there?
I didn't say forever.
But that
Pop something off, you
that's
gotta
beautiful,
win.
that means y'all balance. That means y'all balance
Yeah.
each other out.
I don't even think it's winging. It's just really trusting the law, taking a chance. Let's go.
It is. And I just be like, yeah, let's go, but let's check this account before we let's go.
No, she's the Italian camera.
Right.
That's the balance.
He's right.
That's the balance.
He was like, let's do it.
Spontaneous and
We're talking about polarity, right?
That's it.
Right?
Man, but what's so funny is because he does have a brilliant brain. Like his mind is so brilliant, and that's that he does, mashallah, and it's so amazing to see him like write a script, and he can take like just a day or 2 days to be like, I'm done. I'm like, there's no way. He's like, no, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow. I said, that's crazy. And I said, I thought we was gonna write together. He's like, I can't. I can't wait for you.
I can't share our creative. Sometimes it's difficult, right? MashaAllah, that's beautiful.
It really is.
Yeah.
It really is.
So can you tell us, I know it's late, we want to just hear about how we can support this play. I put an all call out when I interviewed you in Shira, and I really truly believe in this, because I think that we don't understand the power of creative expression as it relates to dollar work, okay? And how impactful and far-reaching it is, and how it's important for us as believers, because many of us need that dollar and reconnection ourselves, right? How important it is for us to support each other.
Right.
So I want to hear about give us the logistics of the play, where we can buy the tickets, what's the time, all of that, and why is it important for everyone to come out and see this?
Well, it's important because I would just go to different masjids. Like I'm from Masjid Muhammad in DC,
Okay.
and I moved down to Atlanta in 2005, and I was at the Atlanta Masjid. But if I go to different communities, I can go to Detroit, the Masjid in Detroit. Every masjid I go to is just like pioneers.
Yeah.
And like in 15 years,
Yep.
all the pioneers gonna be dead. You know, that's just how Allah created. He gave us a life so we could die. So in 15 years, you got brothers at 65 and up. They're gonna be 80 and up, so they're gonna be gone. So I ain't see a lot of youth. So I'm like, and I know where the youth at. Some of them was in where I was at. Some of them in the streets on drugs. Some of them in the clubs.
Strip club.
Yeah. So I'm like, I know as black people, a lot of us is big on culture. Like we want to look fly. We want to music. We want to. So I'm like, okay, maybe we could put the dawah with the culture and put it together, and we could bring the youth back. So that's
And go ahead, businesswoman. Get us to the show.
Right, because we need them for the seat, okay? But no, you can actually, so Eventbrite is done.
Okay.
You can purchase tickets at the door. And yeah, so basically purchase tickets at the door.
Okay. Yeah. Tell us logistics where.
Okay,
when.
so no, we're not talking about LA. We ain't in LA, babe.
I'm
See, that's what I'm saying right there. Mom, that's it.
Wait, do y'all even got plans for LA?
Yes.
No, they're-
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
good. That's what's
flying
up.
out to LA to the show.
You know,
You
yeah,
probably do. Oh, he was just making something up, LA.
But yes, we do actually have a show planned for LA December the 10th. Back to Atlanta is at Drew Charter Junior High School. Doors gonna open to general admission at 7:30. Doors open to my VIPs at 6:45, 7 o'clock, so we have vendors and they can come and support the vendors and just, it's priority seating, so there's no assigned seats. So it's just for my VIPs priority seating, they come in first and everybody else get in when they fit in. But the seats are spectacular everywhere.
Charter has an
Like
amazing.
the theater is so nice.
Yeah.
They were so shocked because when I said it's a high school, they were like, oh. And then when they went in there, they were like, oh my God, I wasn't expecting this.
Right.
I'm like, yeah, it's really nice. It's a nice theater. So I feel like everybody will enjoy the show. They will take something from it, and they would identify with something in each character. You have to, grown up Muslim or not grown up Muslim and converted to Islam, you can recognize a little bit of yourself inside each character. That's how I feel.
Yeah. It really, the story itself, just as a final point, really woke me up just as it relates to this parenting struggle that many of us are on, and just, subhanAllah, the power of prayer and the power of being balanced. Because I think that was sort of what I got of it. Yeah, the power of being balanced.
It's just like when you become Muslim or get back on your deen, you kind of be like, you be real hard, like kind of not extreme, but you be trying so hard not to go back to your old life that you forget about your family that's kind of like that's kind of like struggling, but y'all gonna see. I don't want to say too much.
It's just like people want to change, and I feel like sometimes when we do the change, we go so hard and we burn out. It's like that's how I tell people, like when they new shahadas or reverts, it's just like they'll be like, oh, I gotta do that. I'm like, just take baby steps.
The middle course.
Yes, take baby steps, because you don't want to burn yourself out, because it's easy to do that, especially when you have so much information coming at you from different individuals and stuff, and then you just trying to make sure, okay, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that, I want to make sure I'm doing this. And sometimes people burn out and they be like, okay, Islam is too much. They see it as hard, but it's not. And I feel like and I feel like having this play, being able to put this on and give it halal entertainment would definitely help. And I feel like it would bring the youth back, because it's something that it's entertainment and it's fun and everybody can relate with the arts.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
MashaAllah.
Barakallah, Jazakallah khairan. We want to just thank Inshra and Salahuddin for coming all the way out here to be here with us tonight. MashaAllah, I cannot stress again how important it is to support. True to my religion, the show is tomorrow at 8 p.m. and then there's a Saturday show at 2 p.m.
and a Saturday show.
and 8 p.m. And definitely the resolution conference
Yes.
this weekend. There's still an opportunity. And I want to, Khalil, so if people are like, wait a minute, resolution conference, wait, I missed that. How can people tap in?
All right, so if
And
you
what
go
should they
to
be tapping into?
resolutionconference.com, it has literally the whole schedule of events.
Right.
If you're going to, please go to the play. I'm gonna be at the play tomorrow, inshallah, with my wife, right?
Y'all gonna
So
be out there.
Yeah.
I'm out here. We're going to support
Date
this.
night.
As we said, the arts is the way that people, and this is not different. Actually, time of the Prophet Sallallahu bringing back Hassan al-Thabit, the poets, they were a lot. I mean, the Prophet Muhammad commissioned them, right, because he saw their place as being able to influence the people, right? And this is the same kind of concept here, where we as people who are practicers also have to work with people who are creative, right? So the same thing. So going back to it, the play Friday or Saturday, and inshallah, if you go to the play Saturday and that's what you choose, the conference that I have on Sunday has a lot for you, right? So we have a concert, like I said, with Ain't Afraid, we have sister activities, and then we have some family stuff that we're doing Saturday. So inshallah, please support this. It's very needed. When I heard about it, I was like, you know what, yeah, man, we got it. And I love the concept. I love what y'all are talking about. It's literally kind of what we're talking about today, in terms of trauma. So the way that societies have typically healed is that we use our arts to do that, right? This is what Sabria is doing with the podcast, right? I'm saying this is what we should be leading. We were once leaders in this, and the only way to do that is that we huddle.
Yeah.
And everybody, that's why we're here all together, because we got to support each other. So please, anyone who's out there, y'all are here, you got to travel in, please watch the play. Then come to the conference, inshallah. If it got to be Saturday at the play and Sunday at the conference, do that. Just support us, because we need that. That's how we keep going. That's how we create through y'all's support. That's what I have. Resolutionconference.com.
Resolutionconference.com. Just really quickly, on Sunday in particular, because I just want to separate. So there are sessions, and then there is the concert at night that starts at what time?
At 8.
So 8 p.m. And so if you tap into the concert, you're going to see Ain't Afraid. Who else?
You're going to see Ain't Afraid. You're going to see Wilmore Siddiqui. So it's like literally a passing of the baton.
I'm a little Muslim
I'm a little Muslim child.
Come on now.
Allah did.
Allah did.
Right. You're going to see him.
It's gonna
Then you're going to see Ain't Afraid, who, in my opinion, are not just artists who are leading artists in the Muslim world. They are some of the most talented artists in the world right now, actually. When you listen to their songs, their songwriting, and who they are, and it's really important, right, that we support them, because when you have talent like that, right, it's like what you're talking about. You have brilliant minds who can lead literally. We are to be excellent Muslim, not just for each other, but to the world. That's who we are, right? And the way we do that is that we are that wall, right? So again, Ain't Afraid. Wilmore Siddiqui. I'm gonna do a little bit of something, Inshallah. I'm gonna do a little something between. Right? Huh?
Are you releasing new music?
I'm releasing something, but we'll see.
Okay.
We'll see about that, right?
Okay.
And then Sister Kilana is also joining us as well. So, and then before that, we have a treat. We put together a sisters session from 11 to 2,
Right.
where it's just only for sisters on Sunday. Then we got a basketball game there. Everybody can come, right? But it's the OG. I'm playing. It's the OG and influencers versus
Wait a minute, what OG?
all
Like my
people who
dad?
used to
Like
play. I'm considered. So I got grades, so I'm considered OG, right? They call
Oh,
young people call me
Lord.
OG. They call me OG. They call me OG. It's the grade. You can't do that about it. He good till they get the grade.
I want the OG.
Right. They think we can't hoop, but again, and I mean it's beyond even the sports. We have to be in shape. Like this is part of it too. Like that time, we got to use that as our example. They were fighting until they were in their 60s, 70s. They were in shape. It's important, right? So we're gonna go out there and show the young people that we still got it, right? You know what I'm saying? So y'all
So
come
you're on
out.
the other side.
I think I'm playing.
What side you want?
You going
I'm on
young?
the enemy.
You know the youngest here. You know the 35. I got you. Yeah, you
So
said
you're
okay.
sitting
All right.
in.
So he playing, I'm playing. Nasheed, listen, you can come out. You can come out, bro.
I can't dribble.
And then everybody will watch this back. Right. That's at 2, right? But
Okay.
the sisters thing before that,
We have
we got Sumaya Ceasefire,
Ceasefire.
who's teaching, who's doing some dance, some interaction stuff going on.
Can I just say real quick?
Yes.
It's not just dance.
Right.
It's very intentional dance, intentional movement.
Yeah.
And one thing that as women we often miss is that a lot of our healing and grounding comes from movement.
Yeah.
And like that's one of the forms of expression. We ain't always gotta run our mouth. Sometimes we just gotta move. So she's very intentional with that. So I encourage anyone to tap into Nancy said.
Awesome. That's really good, right? And then after that, we have Sister Asma Diva, who does hijab tutorials, and she's from Hijabi Pop.
Yeah.
So she's gonna do right. And her thing is gonna be about skin tone and matching your hijab up with that and how to do it. And that's she's gonna do a whole demonstration. And then Sister Kilana is actually gonna talk about art and how it heals too. So how you can use art, because at the end of the day, we were talking about expression, and I really believe it doesn't have to be art in the same way people see it, but expression is one of the keys to how men can actually unlock their ability to manage their emotions. Expression, literally expression. We have issues, and again, when we talk about the Sahaba, they were expressive, they cried, they were honest with each other, they talked to each other in an honest way. They weren't scared of their emotions, and that's how they release. We're suppressed. So the reason why we're doing all these things is we want people to get out of that suppressive mode, right? So
through safe outlets.
Through safe outlets. We have a safe environment where we support each other. We say salams, we break down and make salah in between time, right? We make that priority, right? And then we support each other, because the whole point of this conference actually is we're going to be doing these in different cities. It's not just a one-time thing in Atlanta. Is togetherness. We can't do this without each other. We get everybody.
That is true. All right, Jazakallah khairan. I appreciate you guys. Can we give some gratitude? Thank you again, Insurance Salahuddin, for coming on, mashallah. I want to thank you so much for the work that you do. May Allah bless you and continue to keep your intentions pure on this path. I mean, Brother Nasheed Jackson, may Allah bless you. May Allah keep you grounded. May Allah bless your family. Mashallah, thank you for always showing up, being transparent. You've been rocking with the woman since day one.
Let's go.
So alhamdulillah for that. And real plug, you have a couple of books.
Her Justice 2. Halal Nympho. Y'all check that out, man, for real. She halal. So
exist.
So yes. But Her Justice is my favorite book, hands down. It's my favorite book. I should always say that. I read it about 5 times. So it's a very, very, very good book. Mashallah. Okay, and the podcast?
Nasheed Jackson, where I help men in relationships. Dealing with things that I had trouble dealing with. So now I'm, putting the issue out and trying to give them a solution to the issue. My story was just like yours, though. My story was just like yours with the story of, I started writing like urban stuff. Yeah. And somebody was like, man, you Muslim. And it didn't feel right anyway. It didn't feel right with me. You know what I'm saying? So I started writing, and that was my mission, is to write stories where I can get down. And I've had so many non-Muslims come up to me, be like, yo, this is a great book.
He's viral on YouTube.
They don't even know. They don't even know that they would get down. You know what I'm saying?
Your big towers are non-Muslim.
Real talk.
Yeah, mashallah. Thank you, Brother Khalil Ismail. Thank you for organizing this, putting this together. I know you had sleepless nights. Thank you and shout outs, okay, to the woman behind, because we wasn't all the way right. So, she was like, they don't know angles. I was like, she had me put done right. I'm not trying to get trouble. So she had me put up right. So alhamdulillah, shout out to Takia. I won't think Khalil like Sister Takia. Mashallah, may Allah bless you, Khalil Ismail, for all the work you do. Support the Resolution Conference. Come see the show. My dear Sister Noble, thank you so much for showing up and showing out. You are a beautiful light. I love every time I'm in your presence. I really, honestly, mashallah, you have very pure light, and I appreciate you for that. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do for your consultant? We're talking a little bit about you're a consultant as well, and you have a
so I have mobilesolace.com, and I do lockbox conversations, and they're private sessions with people who just need practical resolutions. We taking an analytical approach, and we call out what their goals are, and then we just start to solution towards those goals.
And we all need that. Mashallah.
So mobilesolace.com.
And you also podcast with our brother Nasheed.
Noble Nasheed
show.
Yes.
It's very good. It's very good. We tune in all the time. Jazakallah khairan. Thank you. Shout out to our producer, Brother Amir. Thank you so much for your diligence and your hard work and being here and showing up, reading comments. That wasn't part of the job description. Jazakallah khairan for that. We really appreciate you. Alhamdulillah. Thank you for my husband that's so tolerating this wait time. He was like, how long is it? I was like, we're only done at 10.
It's like 2 hours later.
I told her,
2 hours later.
Jazakallah khairan. Thank you everybody for tuning in. We love you guys. See you guys this weekend. Assalamu alaikum. Until next time. All right, you guys.